What about the 1,000-year reign? The Bible says that afterwards the devil will be released and even the chosen ones will be deceived. Can you explain that? Well, stay with me until the end and I'll show you step by step that this has already happened and that the religious system insists on keeping you in fear. We know that millennium comes from the word thousand, but the point is that in the Bible, numbers don't work like modern mathematics. They are symbols. Psalm 50:10 says that God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, but that doesn't mean exactly 1,000 hills. It means that he owns all the hills. Psalm 94 says that 1,000 years for God is like a day. In other words, in the Bible, 1,000 years represents a complete time, an entire era, and an established cycle. Just as 7 means spiritual fulfillment, 12 means government, and 40 means transition, the millennium means a complete spiritual era and not a literal timetable. Revelation is a symbolic book, not a calendar. Okay, and when does this millennium begin? The millennium begins at the cross, because Revelation says that Satan was bound so that he could no longer deceive the nations. Matthew 12:29 says that no one enters the house of the strong man without first binding him, and John 12:31 says, "The prince of this age will be cast out." When Jesus says the prince of this age, he's not talking about an invisible mythological being who walked around controlling everything. He was talking about the religious and spiritual power system that ruled at that time. In other words, the Old Covenant was the prince of that age. Colossians 2:15 says that Jesus stripped away the powers, that is, the authority of the old system fell. The gospel began to reach the world and the kingdom was inaugurated. That was the beginning of the millennium. Between the cross in the year 30 and the destruction of Jerusalem in the year 70, there is a period of transition. And during this period, the gospel grows, churches are born, grace confronts the law, the physical temple still exists, sacrifices still take place culturally, and the disciples still have supper. The supper was not an eternal ritual, it was a memorial of transition. 1 Corinthians 11:26, "You will proclaim the Lord's death until he comes." That is, it had a deadline and pointed to the end of that era. And in the year 70, the sacrifices ended, the Levitical priesthood came to an end, and the old system ended publicly. Revelation says that for a short time, Satan would be released to deceive, but here it does not refer to a mythological being flying around. I've already explained that Satan in Hebrew means accuser, opponent, adversary, among other things. So everything that opposes God, truth, and freedom operates as Satan. It is not a mythological being, it is a function of opposition. So in this context, Satan refers to religious deception, spiritual manipulation, false leaders. Historically, between the years 30 and 70, many false prophets arose, calling the people back to the law, religious fanaticism, spiritual chaos, revolts, among other things. We already know that the millennium was between the cross and the year 70, so during this period, many false prophets arose calling people to abandon grace and return to the system of the law of Moses. Matthew 24:34, "This generation will not pass away until all these things are fulfilled." And in the same generation, Jerusalem is destroyed, the millennium ends, the old covenant ends, and the kingdom remains. Today, those who preach grace, freedom, and conscience are called false prophets. But in the first century, those who deceived people and were false prophets were the religious leaders who called on people who were already under grace to return to the system of the law of Moses. Returning to the 21st century, nothing has changed today, only the stage has changed, because religion needs fear and the kingdom generates freedom. And that is why Jesus was killed, because he came preaching freedom within a system that ruled by fear. The disciples went through this, I am going through this, and anyone who confronts the religious system will go through this. If you keep waiting for what has already happened, you will continue to have afraid of something that has already been overcome. Christ did not call you to survive an apocalypse. Christ called you to live.